Faire is an architecture and multidisciplinary design studio based in Paris, led by Federico Diodato and Nikhil Calas, who built the practice based on the premise of using architecture and process to restore relationships in such isolated society. Realizing that architecture is always the case where many hands and many disciplines coming together, we thought that it would be amazing to chat with both Federico and Nikhil today about harmonizing functionality and responsibility. So great to have you both.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
It's my pleasure. So will you first tell us about your background and about the studio?
Yeah, for sure. As you said, Faire is a multidisciplinary Paris-based studio. So we're both in Paris, and we're trying to question the industry with our approach to architecture. So I founded the firm in 2016 with two other friends that since have gone to pursue other paths. And the name faire means to make in French. And that's because our initial goal was to combine architecture with related fields, woodwork, for example. And our main idea is that there are really no borders between disciplines and also between project scales. Sorry, difficult to say. And myself, I'm an architect. My name is Nikhil. I'm an architect and I'm a teacher. I'm a carpenter, and also I'm a board member of a union that is named the Syndicat de l'Architecture here in Paris.
Yeah, when I joined the firm in 2020, I think, we found ourselves at a crosspath to angle better what our firm was about. So my background is more related to the relationship between architecture and urban planning and larger scale architecture. I worked for a few years at the office of Alexandre Chometov. Alexandre Chometov is an architect, an urban planner, and a landscape architect. And also the research, it's something quite important for me. I'm currently a PhD candidate in co-tutorship between Paris University and the University of Bologna in Italy. So we started to envision a practice that could hold it all together. Yeah, that's our bet.
That's amazing how both of your backgrounds kind of complement each other. And that's also the philosophy of the studio, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, completely. Yeah.
So what is designing responsibly to you?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I think very basically for us, it implies to listen, to look, and like just to be open to other things, to the outside world. And we believe it's like a dialogue. We believe making a project responsibly is to enter a dialogue and really be part of a process. So it's not about us making something by ourselves, but it's really about the dialogue, the conversation between us, between the clients, and also between the rest of what's at stake there. So it's about taking into account all the users, for example, and not only the users that were, for example, our clients, but in a wider sense, it's about human, non-human, fauna, flora, and also permanent and punctual users. And of course, another things about responsibility that is very important is about choosing carefully the materials that we use and how we use them, to be smart about it, to be economical about it. Also, that's a very important thing to us.
Yeah, I actually think that for us, it's all about giving the ability to the projects that we make to transform in the future. So to accommodate potential uses that are not here right now, but might emerge someday. So the idea of upgradable, transformable, and reversible deeply questions us. That alone cannot work tough. So we need a framework and a common understanding of what's at stake. Who, in a wide sense, are we working for?
Yeah, for and with also.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. So what are the values and principles that influence the way you work?
Well, I think this question connects to the previous one. So as possible, it encompasses all the aspects of our practice in a certain way. So we engage in architecture, carpentry, research, teaching, and also political advocacy with Nikhil. So we also try to balance functionality and responsibility in a certain way, choosing clients and projects that align with our values.
Yeah, exactly. And about the values and this responsibility that we have, just even as human beings, is it's there. I mean, I think the values that we are there every step of the way, and also in every aspect of our different missions. And I think that's what we also love about having different jobs, because one day you're a teacher, the next day you're a researcher, the next day you're an architect at a firm, then you're a carpenter, then you do political advocacy. And so what's really interesting about having all these different roles is that we get also to learn, to share from all these different circles that we are in, and we get to meet so many more people, share ideas, also transform our own ideas, and confront these views, share them. And so to us, it's also what makes us happy also is this learning process that we are in permanently, and to readapt to things. And I think it's a very rich way to us to think about architecture, what it can mean. And it's so much wider, for example, for me, than what I was envisioning during my studies, because I imagined that the only thing that we could do after architecture school was having a firm, an architecture studio, and that was about it. And then talking with Federico, we discovered that we can have many, many roles. And that's quite hopeful to us, I think, this idea.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'm sure that there are many disciplines that will play along in the making of a design or architecture, right? So I'm wondering, what are the keys to usually highlight that when designing for a balanced functionality or a responsibility, especially when you design to a client, or how do you kind of manage the different goals of the different stakeholders?
Yeah, I mean, I think functionality and responsibility go really well together, actually. And of course, I think as you said, taking into account all the different goals from the different stakeholders is a difficult task, of course. And I think it always implies to prioritize. At some point, you need to prioritize certain things. And I think to us, and it's very different that what we did when we were at school, it's not about making the perfect project or having the best answer, but it's about also learning by doing, improving for every project, discovering new directions. So to us, this learning process is one of the answers, and also to be able to prioritize at some point. And the perfection is not attainable to us, I think.
Yeah, I think that we must remember that making a project first and foremost also means becoming part of a context. So a place with its own history that are already there, and also specificities and temporalities. And we have to try to work with that.
Yeah, exactly. I think what you said, it's really about the dialogue. So also we have to take into account that the final project depends partly on us, and partly on so many other aspects and the history of the place. And so I think the richness is, taking this into account and making a conversation about it. So also understanding that as architects, as designers, we are not masters of it all. And I think that's what we like about it also.
Yeah, that's cool. In what ways have you established connections between architecture, materials, and also maybe local techniques or the context around it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's a very strong potential in the relationship between architecture, materials, and techniques, because of course architecture is also about building things or renovating. So it's really in the real world, in the material world. And we also believe that this potential can be found through trying out. And it's often complicated in the professional world, when you have contracts, when you have timeframes, where you have money. It's complicated sometimes to try out things, to try new things. And I think that it's about architecture has one specificity, has many specificities, but one of its specificities is that every time we build something, it's a prototype. Unlike the rest of the production world, for example, for phones, for furniture, or everything, you have many prototypes, and then you produce them to perfection in a sense. And architecture is very different about it. So I think the fact is that when you build something, it's the first time you build it, and also it's the last time you build it. So it's really a prototype. And
I think that it's something that you learn also because you are a carpenter.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that's quite important to integrate the learning of the maker, the learning of the faire. So, of course, the importance of materials and their construction technique is crucial. It's important to know how the construction process works, and also to manage it consciously. Consciously in a certain way. So this knowledge makes it possible to use local supply chains and to reduce waste in the use of materials. And so it's therefore closely linked to the sustainability in a certain way of the project.
Yeah, for sure. And I was rereading a book by Richard Sennett the other day, and he was talking about how a specificity of craft making is that this process of learning by doing. So when you're learning as you are doing things, and it's not about designing in your head first and then projecting what you have imagined onto a material, for example, wood, but it's about imagining something, and then the final product would be the meeting between this idea that you had and the reality of the wood, of the material, of the knots it might have, the humidity level. And it's never about projecting something, a final project onto a form, but it's about this meeting of the reality and the thought. And you learn every step of the way, especially as a craftsman. It's very obvious that you need many hours to incorporate, like in the true meaning of the sense. In French, it means to put something into your body, incorporate. And it's very true, especially about craft. And I think that's what we like about different learning techniques. We enjoy them as well.
Yeah, you spoke about Richard Sennett. There is all a universe of references that we like and we share. I think Sennett, of course, but also John Dewey or Tim Ingold that speak about this learning by doing. It's something really important for our practice, I think.
Yeah, it's always great to have a learning mindset. So
definitely. Totally.
There are two projects that we would like to know more about. So it's the Chanteloup project and the Ségur. So we're wondering if you can share more about those projects and how do the two of them generate impacts in the surroundings.
Yeah, sure. So, well, the first project, the Chanteloup project, consists of an ecological renovation of a barn set in Chanteloup. So it's in the Nouvelle-Aquitaine, a region in France. So the owners, the family of the owners was growing year after year. So they wanted to create a retreat within the compound just for the two of them. So the raw barn seemed to us full of potential, actually. So we decided all together that the project was right there. And it was very important for us to be able, in a certain way, to unveil the potential of the building, the existing building. So the project's aim was to carry out minimal interventions on the building exterior and the structure, while providing new uses, perspectives, and volumes. So we wanted to provide a bright and pleasant atmosphere while preserving also the spirit and the lavish volume of the barn, of the existing building.
Yeah, and you were talking about the Ségur project. It's quite different because it's a small apartment, so it's a 50 square meters apartment that's located in Paris, in the left bank, in the 7th arrondissement. So it's quite different from a barn in the middle of the countryside. But there was an original floor plan. It was a 1-bedroom apartment, and the original floor plan was quite weird because we couldn't have a kitchen, like a proper kitchen. They couldn't have a proper dining table, proper living room, or bedroom. So it was really badly done. And we wanted to give a feeling of connection and of space to this small apartment between all the rooms and between all the volumes. And we decided to remove most walls at first. That was the first thing. And then we installed like a small glass enclosure from the in between the bedroom and the living room. And then we decided to do all the rest in carpentry. So we created circulation along the facade that is quite classical about Haussmannian buildings, this connection, because you can open up all the doors and then you can see all the windows. So it's quite rich and it quite changes the space. And since we're both architects and also a carpenter, we decided to design 3 wooden volumes that would create all the other spaces. So the first volume is the entrance and kitchen volume. And so it's sorry, it's a wooden volume, and it connects to the dining area, the living area, and the entrance area. So it's about thick partition walls that hold up lots of storage and also many functions for the kitchen, for the entrance, for everything. Another wooden volume is in the living room. So it's a large bookcase that as well includes lots of storage and also visible storage for all the books through the bookcases. And then the last one is something in the bedroom that wraps around the existing bed that they had. And it was right about COVID times. So they told us that they absolutely needed an office at home. That was not in the previous brief. And so we designed this space that wrapped around the bed that had a small office, also lots of storage, and also that could include night tables, bedtime. I don't remember the name, but the idea of the project was to also to be flexible in the future, because all of the wooden volumes can also be removed by the next owners, and that was something that was really interesting to us, to make almost everything in carpentry.
Yeah, we work with a carpenter for this project.
Yeah, we
weren't involved in the building process, actually.
Yeah, we discussed with him, but he was a great carpenter also. And he made
the name?
And the name of Nicolas Austin is really
he's really good carpenter, but it was really important to know how to design actually the carpentry.
Yeah, to be able, it was great conversations between the both of us, especially on this project.
Yeah.
So it was really
to conceive the details together. That was something quite important for us.
Mm-hmm. Super cool. So lastly, through your extensive experiences, what have you experienced to be the most challenging aspects in designing responsibly and sustainably?
Yeah, sustainability is a wide challenge. And of course, it concerns the building world, architecture greatly. So design responsibly can mean different things. Selecting the project we work on, and if needed, shifting the brief to something more sustainable. I think it's the first point I think is quite important. And also the second point for us, it's crucial, is transforming the existing, the déjà là, so the already there in English, is today actually the primary task for architects. And so in this perspective, architecture as the art of building to last. So building to last means using materials that will stand the test of time, but it also means designing buildings that can be adapted over time.
Yeah, for sure. No, for sure. In designing, it's a very, very important thing. And also as a union activist, I'm a board member of the Syndicat de l'Architecture, which is one of the 2 unions for employers in architecture in France. And to us, it's a very important thing to be involved into social dialogue as well. And this is to us a very palpable contribution, everyday contribution to architecture and to the way that architecture is produced in France for firms, for employers, employees. And basically to us, it means to represent and to defend our profession as a whole, along with the architecture branch, but also the Ministry of Culture, that is our ministry. And for example, we're working right now on the content of the diplomas in architecture that need to be reviewed in France every 5 years. So we're currently working on that and how to make them evolve to face the future challenges that architects will have, and urban planner and landscape architects will have to deal with. And we also have recently, we have negotiated branch agreements about remote working, especially during COVID. That was right about the time that we tried to negotiate that. And also working on a gender equality act in the architecture firm. So we're working on that right now, and we have signed something a couple of years ago. So I think to us, it's very important also this very, very palpable, very down to earth and everyday life about how we produce architecture and how we are a profession as a whole.
Yeah, I really like that expression that architecture is an art,
Yeah.
art building to last, meaning like you should build something that's flexible enough to be adapted over time, and that way it makes it more rich too, to incorporate the culture or the crafts of that time and keep building onto it. So you can, in a single building, there can be layers and layers of times and reflections of society.
Yeah, completely. And it's also a very beautiful idea, these layers that you're talking about. I think it's also very beautiful to be able to reuse things and to add something to it or to remove something to it if it's not about your use. But I think it's a very hopeful idea also.
Yeah, agree. So it's been a pleasure chatting with you, and thank you, and hope to see you soon.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Have a good day.
Really, thank you. Bye.